Donald Trump comes into office saying he's going to build a wall, that there is a threat and an emergency at the border that demands that wall get built and that wall get built immediately. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that was the reason that Donald Trump got elected, but that was one of the campaign promises that Donald Trump tried to effect, whether or not it was needed and necessary or not. Donald Trump was going to push it through, even if it was going to hurt people in the country to do it. Now, part of that had to do with, what was it, the TSA, when all of those people were furloughed because there was this kind of back and forth with Donald Trump using the border wall as a bargaining chip, or let's say those people's livelihoods for months as a bargaining chip to build a wall that was not all that necessary. In the first 3 years that Donald Trump was pushing for the build a wall, there were, less than 50 eminent domain requests. Now, what this is, basically, or lawsuits. The government, if it's going to build a wall, doesn't necessarily have magical authority over the land. Meaning, if it's going to build a wall in Texas, well, people own that land that it needs to build that wall on. And some of those people got a rude awakening when they found out that the government put up various lawsuits in order to get their hands on that land in order to build the wall on that land, on that private property. Well, in 3 years, there were 50 of these lawsuits. In the last year, there were 140. Now, think about why. You have a situation where the president of the United States is getting to an election. And in getting to that election, two things are happening. One, he's ramping up the number of lawsuits and ramping up the purchasing of the land, ramping up the contracts, etc. All in the last year because he wants to, A, show he's doing something, but B, lock Biden in to whatever's taking place. Meaning, it's not just build a wall during his own term. He's trying to forcibly put Biden in a position where he goes through with it, where the least amount of effort is to basically go through with it. Where Biden has basically said he's not going to go building that wall. He said he was going to put a pause on this notion of the lawsuits and whatever he was going to do about the contracts that Donald Trump had already got signed. Who knows? But at the very least, it seemed, at least vocally, Joe Biden was going to take a different tact. Well, that different tact seemed to be coming to a head. You have Joe Biden wanting to take a different tact from the standpoint of letting kids in, and we saw what happened with that. You had the Mexico issue break down, meaning the deal that Donald Trump had with Mexico where they were going to keep the people there. Well, that broke down. Well, you have that coming back into fruition with the U.S. working with some of the nations in South America or Central America to militarize the pathway to try to cut down on the number of kids that end up making it to the U.S. border. One policy after the next. You have kids in cages. Well, Biden doesn't want to call them cages, so they call them something else. And even with this eminent domain, whereas it was given this kind of vocal support that it was going to be paused or stopped, not so much. You have the family, the Cavazo family, this person, this gentleman right here, this family, that are having their land seized right now. This morning in Texas, the Joe Biden administration seized the property of Cavazo family for border wall construction after being granted possession via court order. We are outraged, and the outcome was avoidable had the administration simply dismissed the case outright. Meaning, pausing the cases is not necessarily the same thing as dismissing the cases. And like I said, Trump put through 140 of these cases. And even though it was given this kind of vocal idea that this was going to get paused, so this was going to get stopped, and Biden wasn't going to build a wall and all this other stuff. Not true. Whether Psaki wants to argue that we're just building components of the wall that was already allocated, okay, fair enough. Let's just be clear that that is building a wall. And in this very specific case, this family is losing their property when Biden could have dismissed the case. You have some of these people, or some people who were being affected by this early on, believe that this was going to get a pass. So right here, Ryan Patrick, U.S. Attorney for the Southern, this was in February. Southern District Court of Texas said in the court filings, the executive order Biden signed on the first day in office on January 20th essentially made going forward with the landlord condemnations moot, at least for now. Efforts to quit other condemnations could be coming soon, court documents indicated. We are especially pleased with the government's withdrawing the motion for immediate possession of the Laredo condemnation cases. As it indicates, the government will step back and dismiss its condemnation cases against Texan property owners, said attorney Ricardo D. Anata. That didn't last long. Because people are still losing their homes. And the people who are losing their homes for eminent domain laws to build a wall that Joe Biden said he wasn't going to build. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you allowing me to bring it to you. This case was aggravating me this morning. In one case after the next, you're finding things that Donald Trump did. Donald Trump was supposed to be the scum of the earth, the most horrible person on the planet, the most incompetent president, etc., etc. And yet, Biden is using things that Donald Trump did. Again, the idea of keeping people at the border, that's something that Donald Trump did with Mexico. Democrats howled at it. It was dangerous, etc. And they were right that it was dangerous, especially for the people who were the migrants that were there. Well, it seems like Biden is putting something similar. The kids in cages. Well, it seems like Biden has something similar. And in this very specific case on a whole building the wall, well, apparently Biden, again, is doing something similar. Here's the catch. When Donald Trump was leaving office, they started buying up a ton of properties. And they started making contracts with people for the wall construction even before they had gotten the properties. So basically, they were filing lawsuits and getting contracts while not even having the properties that would result from the lawsuit of eminent domain. And so the belief was that regardless of the contracts that Joe Biden or that Donald Trump got, Biden still had discretion, or the White House still had discretion over whether or not the stuff went forward. That was the thought. And so when the U.S. Attorney in Texas is sounding this kind of note of, okay, we're bringing this up to a close, this is not necessarily something that's going forward, right, that this stuff is not going forward. Well, not so much. Not so much. It is unclear how much property they take. It is unclear how far Joe Biden goes with the eminent domain court cases. And it would be nice if somebody would ask Psaki this question, considering these people are losing their land. I contacted CBP, by the way, Customs Bureau and protections, because I wanted to get information on this very specific case about whether or not Joe Biden is going to go through with the eminent domain, and if he's going to go through with taking the property. And if so, what does it mean? Is that a breach of a campaign promise, considering this sounded like something he wasn't all that much for, and yet something that seems to be continuing. I was sent to a different location that I am going to contact to see if they give me any heads up or any feedback on it. But clearly, this is a betrayal. And the people who are in Texas who believe they were going to be able to keep their land because Donald Trump lost that race, they see it as such. The Texas Civil Rights Project, I've also contacted them to see if I could get somebody on the show to talk about it. They're on the ground. They're dealing with, at the very least, this family that is losing their home or has just lost their home and their private property to eminent domain laws, the build wall that Joe Biden said wasn't necessarily going to be built. And so I was trying to get them on the show also. So hopefully they hit me back and they give me a heads up, and maybe we can get it back on the show for tomorrow morning. But just to give a heads up on what is happening right here. All right. So Texas Civil Rights Project represents the Cavazo family in this litigation, and we hope to have a full statement on this horrible decision soon. The Department of Justice must immediately reverse course and return all seized lands to the communities from where they came. This decision by the administration will not in any way, quote, build back better, unquote, and breaks the President of the United States' promise to dismiss all border wall cases. Stay tuned as we work with the Cavazo family to share their story and the devastating outcome that must immediately be reversed. It is false that Joe Biden has stopped the border wall. That fight against the wall in Texas is not over. 140 lawsuits are still active. The Cavazos are just one. Now this family is at the mercy of the government that is continuing the Trump-Biden border wall. Hashtag not another foot. This is a big deal. The people in Texas thought that Joe Biden was going to take a different tack than Trump. They thought that he was going to stop the border wall. They thought he was going to dismiss the cases. And they didn't think this for no reason. They thought this because that is basically what Biden was pushing. But apparently, just like the $2,000, but apparently, just like the $15 an hour minimum wage, apparently, just like the no kids in cages or not having these kids in cages, this is a break of a promise. Or at the very least, a break of a pledge. And yes, Biden should be asked about this. Yes, the fact that the people are losing their private property to build a wall that is somewhat unnecessary, at the very least that the president said he wasn't going to build, is a big deal. And you would think that the White House press corps would be peppering questions to one Psaki today and even yesterday on this very specific issue, considering the president that said he doesn't break his word seems to be breaking his word. And these people are losing their homes because of it. Biden doesn't have to do this. The government does not have to take these properties. The government could dismiss these lawsuits, and in this very specific case, could give the Cavazos back their land. Up to this point, that hasn't happened. Like, share, subscribe, and when they contact me, hopefully I can get somebody on the show to talk directly about it from the Texas Civil Rights Project. And hopefully I also can get a statement from Customs and Border Patrol. Fingers crossed.